In this video, I'm going to get into the existential question of how do you build a vibe? I'm going to start with mood boarding and then concepts behind a brand. I'm going to go into iconography. I'm going to go into application of iconography on product. I'm going to go into using your ideas and your vibes to like curate an audience before you launch. And I'm going to show you my stuff as an example for all of this. I'm going to show you all the mood boards, a bunch of the design files, a bunch of the finished products so you can see what that looks like. And hope you get a ton of value out of it, and you can come back to it anytime you are trying to make an interesting vibe for a project you have. Let's hit it.
All right, and so if you are trying to create a vibe for your brand, clothing line, whatever it is, it starts with this interplay between the ideas that you have and the visuals that you want to feel like the brand. So I'm a huge mood boarding advocate for Valuable. We did like extensive, like hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of images across different places and different boards, kind of representing different looks and feel. But with that, there was also like some interplay as to what we actually felt the brand was for. My brand, I take a lot of inspiration from my history setting the vibe. And so I lived in Arizona for years. I lived in Texas like the last 6, and then moved to California and been beachside the last 3. And I kind of wanted to make a visual representation, a mashup of ranch, Southwestern culture, and the beach culture. And that plays through deeply in the iconography and the garments and the whole thing. But the through line of it all is kind of like car culture, celebration culture, life maxing, for lack of a better term, half ranch, half beach, all foot on the gas pedal. And then another theme is celebration. I want to do unique objects. I want to have iconography that basically made it feel like when you buy a special piece, it has something on it that like feels almost like special and old school in that way that you could see on like a championship ring or a trophy. So when you go through these kind of mood boards we have here, it's kind of indicative of that, like the chess pieces, wings you could see on kind of a trophy, like a special piece of jewelry, like having that feel of like something celebratory mixed in with that same lifestyle element you see before, a lot of like place behind the pines. I like to think about like sometimes when people are mood boarding now, there's always this like pressure from the internet to have things be like cool or on a certain level. And we shouldn't reference things that have been referenced before, or we need to like, we can't use common movies or anything. And I'm more of like, especially when you're trying to make something that has like mainstream appeal, is like lean into those ideas, put your own kind of spin and look on it when it gets there. And like people are going to get the references, they're going to be excited. But having these boards is important, and having like multiple people participate on the boards who are going to be a part of the brand, like stack their images and share it, like also is really helpful, because it's going to be the basis for like social media curation. So I'm talking about like curation as part of building, like in a minute, like finding people based on a vibe. I have these images on here, but we had a bunch of like 70s car exploitation movie stuff on some of the initial mood boards. This is all some related, and it was like old school Dodges with like big eagles painted on them and stuff like that, like Smokey and the Bandit type shit. That's like stuff we pulled out of to be like, oh yeah, we should pull from a lot of car iconography. We should pull Cobras. We should pull like the things that you saw in like old Western ads as part of the iconography for the brand pack. So then what do you do from there? From there, once you have all that mood, you create iconography. Here's a bunch of the iconography that we put together for them. Now, I had one designer do a couple of the core things, like he did these 2 logos up here, he did the cowboy, and then I had an illustrator come and pull things like the eagle and some of the other illustrations you see. And then like you can basically, from those mood boards, designers are going to get the idea and get the vibe. And I'm going to ask for things, be like, hey, I need something I can stamp stuff. Like I need something that's like a simple thing if we want to make a mold, versus we want kind of more complex. We need things that look like signage or official logos, or we want to have stuff that's like more applicable to shirts. These are versions, like not all of these have made it or are going to be on stuff, but this is like the variations we ended up working with and choosing. And one of the other brand themes I wanted to have in here that influenced a lot of things, like the fact like we've seen like the Marlboro font or the Ferrari font, things like that, is I wanted it to feel familiar. Like those are choices you should have when you're creating something. Do you want it to feel completely new, or do you want to feel like it's been around for a minute, like it's strangely familiar? And I liked that because I feel like we are stuck with, for better or for worse, like nostalgia for like this entire era. Everyone's always gonna be reminiscing for something better, and they're always gonna be attracted to things that have been around. And if you have a visual feel that kind of matches that, it's one way to tap into like that feeling while having like, you know, a newer brand, versus if you come out with some completely different iconography, etc., it puts you on a different playing field as to the kind of content you can make, what you have to do, etc. And at some point I might play in that, but I love the idea of having this feel like something that could have easily been a part of like a previous generation of things. But getting this iconography and choosing it and saying, what am I going to do with what and what's the application, is like key to setting the vibe, right? And you'll notice we distressed all the logos like afterwards, versus like sticking with the original versions of them that were clean, because every time we use them, we want to have that aged feel. We distress a lot of the shirts. You know, there's a thin line between going like full affliction, etc., but like I'm going to ride that line as hard as I humanly can. In the meantime, we're like playing with some more imagery and thoughts down here of things that we're good. But it's important to think about application. Like these are like the fall hats that we're looking at. And it's like having something like the V that I can put on multiple things, or okay, what can I embroider? Like this is a patch. You'll see it on the hat later. Like being able to have that logo and run it as a patch. Being able to have this logo run it as a patch. Being able to have like a core word mark, you know, everything else to actually say valuable, like All right, being able to run something like this as a patch. Like it's important to think about like how things are actually going to get applied, like when they're put on as well. These are like the two we ended up actually running, and you'll see one of those logos becomes a patch on both. We have like a kind of a main logo type. I didn't want to stick with the imperial font Ferrari piece of this forever, so we basically kind of quickly went into a mod of it where like I'm going to run this for a little bit to start, and then it's going to go away pretty quick, and that will have been like an original, and then we'll have leaned it into like our kind of cleaner variant. But that's why like I don't ever feel bad about the inspiration, right? This is a mashup of Atari and Ferrari, which I think is just like funny in its own right, but like it's unique looking enough, but it feels familiar. You wonder what the reference is, and it doesn't live forever, right? It's like an introduction that feels somewhat familiar and then shifts kind of quickly into like our own variant. And like logos and iconography, especially when you're a brand that's going to be producing, shirts and things that you have multiple iterations of, should be able to grow with the projects that you're working. And you start to see like, all right, cool, let's run that into footwear. Like, so there's a through line between it. And we ended up putting up there on the sneaker, we put a like the lines from the other logo. And okay, we're going into bags. Which of these could be potential for all right, let's run that as a patch. Let's have this iconography that we can work through it and like see how it extends. And we did a lot of this work before anything ever went into production, to see what does that look like over time and be like, yeah, I'm not going to run it ever to look like that. I might run this to look like this. Yeah, okay, this started in here as a design, but now ended up looking way better, subtler as a patch. Like that application of the vibe, of the look onto what you're actually making and like how that's gonna roll is like critical to be thinking about since day one. And we're in a world where you can mock all this stuff up at the same time, and that's part of the journey. It's content. All right, so after all that, what do we end up with as far as what we actually produce and do? So I have a bunch of items that are getting ready to launch, and we're gonna walk through them. So first, you can have the iconography. If you're putting it on some standard stuff, it's only going to take you so we spent a ton of time on the washes on these garments. These are like the heaviest shirts possible. Fabric took months to hunt down. But then you see we distressed everything. Both the shirt itself and the shirt was experimented with washing after we printed it versus before it for the look we want. But basically, even basic pieces need to be statement with a name like valuable and with the iconography we're going for, to see how we applied the cowboy onto this one. And I made sure like those hotter designs like this and the automobile like aren't available on anything but like a color. Like when they come out, they're going to be as cobra joints that are out already on a slightly lighter shirt. But notice everything is 2 color. That plays back into the vibe. I didn't want to do any full color, no printing that's not a screen. Like we wanted everything to like have that almost like tattoo, simpler, nostalgic feel. But this goes for like, I want to extend it to like in the vehicle. Like what would you put on your vehicle and feel stoked about? If you're putting something in your truck, I want you to be like, have that right feeling for it. And so like extending the vibe into those products, so it's not just shirts, it's not just clothes, was big for me to come out the gate. Hats you'll see as well. Do little things like picking the mat on the thread to the label in here that's got the vehicle on it. The automobile one from the you see on the other shirt in the design, but in here like as a patch. Most of those icons are designed, besides the cowboy and the ones with the intricate illustration, to be able to double as patches. This is a color we roll with. We roll with a different design. I ended up using the V on the contrast here. And how do you bring that same vibe to other products? Like the shoe bag, same cowboy look. Another vibe for it here, and then as you'll see, another icon that functions as a patch. So I like to have a lot of iconography. People are like, yo, you should be sticking with one logo, doing one design. Like, I don't really feel that's the case. You need like a canvas to be able to work with and then overarching visual kind of themes and words that play off that. There's only one thing where the valuable isn't at play, and that's what we're going to kind of focus on being like more of a main mark. But like, you need a canvas to work with, I feel like. And I don't want these to look at like they're just a t-shirt design. These are designs that we can reflect. And then for some of the logo stuff, like, then how do you match that? So I have all these knits to go with it. So this is a sweater knit. This is actually a first sample. This is heavy. We're going lighter because I'm putting it out end of summer. So different weight, but you get the idea. But no logos on these at all, besides on the tag. This color ended up being too light. We went with a darker brown for production, but you'll get, this is kind of like the lighter version here. But even the little stuff, paper clip, zip, and it's like, how do we kind of pair that? Pants, same thing. Keeping this beach vibe somewhat alive and included, like making sure these knits have a feel, have a texture to them. You notice every one of these products has texture. I love texture. Cashmere hat with the horse. You could see the texture on the cashmere. You can kind of feel and see what's going on here on the pant. Same with that waffle. And even on the shirts, like we did, the shirts aren't standard like at all. And you can kind of see that there's a feeling and a grain to everything. And it's like that texture is what separates kind of standard from premium. And I'm obsessed mess with it, and you'll see that on everything. Even with something simple like belts, it's like the same thing, like real pony hair and hide. And then like this is an extension visually of what's going on. It has the Western extension, but it's not overt. It's not beating you over the head with it, massive buckles or anything. It's got that same kind of modern subtlety of the rest, but it's extended through materials choice, through kind of some of the basics of what do we choose for the details, like what we have on the tips on here. And then inside we're stamped with the valuable word mark. That same thing, like you're going to be a car culture brand, make car accessories, like, you know, doing the dice, having something just like fun and that like that ties in the lifestyle portion of this. So it's not just like a picture of a car on a shirt, you know? I like to think about what spaces do your items live in, right? You're building a lifestyle, you're building a vibe. You're going to live in someone's like, okay, you have a statement item they wear out, they layer, it's part of an outfit, they have a bag that they carry some days when they're going to the gym. You know, can you be in their car? Can you be in their home? What does that look like? And the car in particular is like, for people that take cars seriously, and for anyone really, dudes, girls, whoever, like a car is like a haven of sorts. It's an extension of a personality too for a lot of folks. And so giving like accoutrements within that to make you feel sick about it, like is just developing this closer bond with the brand. Then we have the shoes, and the shoes took forever. We do a whole separate video on the shoes. We ended up going with the sole being the same color, and there's some other details. These are a different color print on the tongue. I think we beefed up the tongue even more. The laces went thicker. This is the closest version I have to what's coming out. But it's like, if you look at this from above, it's a Longhorn, you know? Every little subtlety, like what the brand looks like. Pretty into it. I'm gonna talk a whole thing about sizing and molds and how shoes get done. That'll probably be next week's video, but for vlogging, I know this is less like me rolling around and going places, but we are locked in to get this stuff out. And I'm gonna break that down in this next section when I talk about the content, like how we're using all this as content to launch, to see how you kind of tie together this whole, like we created the brand, we created iconography, we created products using it to have some concepts to, okay, now we use a story tell with it. All right, talk about the role of vibe in social media. So I'm building this account from nothing. 1370 followers. It's a grind to build these accounts from nothing. I have done I've shouted it out on my account. Obviously I have like hundreds of thousands. I haven't ever made a video like fully about it, or a video kind of cross-linking it. I've done some carousels that kind of cross-link. I did a co-video on this bag design. You know, so like some little subtle stuff. I haven't pushed it yet, and I'm hoping when I want to have a base before I like lean too heavily on my audience for it, but like it's a grind to work through it. So there's a couple type of like mood vibe posts I feel like are really, really useful. And so the first one is just videos like this. And you can literally see the mood board we looked at before. I just took my favorite imagery from it and popped it on here. Now, this is a bit of a gray area for like established brands, people that are selling a bunch of stuff. I'm only putting this out for an audience yet, like pre-drop. Even then, still a complicated area. Like how much of other people's content can you post? Like there's whole accounts that are like, you know, dedicated to posting like other content, but with their own unique twist on it. My favorite is definitely this one. But like, yeah, this is all someone else's content, but with his vibe, he's selling his things. And we're in this weird time where we're like having that conversation as to what is allowable and what's not. We're all kind of dabbling in it. The internet wants you to curate everything. It's almost like there's a massive collage out there, but at the same time, big brands will get sued for using the wrong music or a paparazzi shot or whatever. So my view of like the safe version of this, and it's definitely not like a lawyer's gonna tell you don't do any of it, but like if you were on a creator account, you haven't done your selling stuff yet, and you want to curate and form a community around a vibe, doing projects like this and being like, and curating interesting things. My boy Clayton does an excellent job of this, where he will kind of find a recurring theme. He's grown really fast too, where he will be like, cool, I'm going to look at Jack Nicholson, you know, or I'm going to look at like the fits of the NBA draft. You know, like he's kind of finding a way to get the menswear vibe that he's looking for. Like, you know, he's bringing into these posts to like be able to find people that are interested in that same vibe. This is a great way to begin to build a social following before launching a brand, is to dig into those kind of aesthetic. And I'm doing that same kind of thing on carousels, is why I just posted today. And just like having that, like bringing some of these visual ideas are going to represent where the brand is going, like into it before we actually start putting anything out of like our content. So those, you know, visual types of like reels that show this or compile stuff together, like at your skill level, you know, carousels of curation, like what Clayton was doing, are like angles you can use to begin to build that up. The other one, a recurring series I'm doing, are these like vision is coming together, where you're just showing like the video clips of the lifestyle. I'm showing the behind the scenes of the different things that are going on in my life that is indicative of the brand with the product product developed. So you can kind of have that 50-50 mix of something is being lived along with it being going on. These all get like thousands of views. They don't get huge, but like it's a way of beginning to like combine those things into a compilation story. And so if you want to make videos like this, it is literally a 1.5 second intro shot. Best shot to be your intro. Nothing else on here is more than half a second. There's 1 or 2 1-second shots that are particularly like purposeful for it. Each of them you'll see is a slight zoom. I do that with keyframes in CapCut, and it is like 12 to 15 seconds max. And the general idea is just like show life and show things coming together as they go. These aren't ones that are gonna like skyrocket your account. Like what do we got? We got like 2,000, 9,000, and this is like a mood board version of that. You'll see the kind of things I'm summarizing for my brand, where I'm like putting those things together in one. But it's literally just like a footage compilation, but like a couple thousand, 9,000, 8,000, 8,000. This one just kick it off. This one's starting to get some leg. And collab posts is why this one's big. But that's the kind of stuff that you can make that is low work. If you're documenting your life, you have an interesting life, or if you have access to footage, or if you're a good curator, you can make that stuff. It does not take a long time, but it begins to find you the people and begins to explain the vibe when someone comes to the page. Someone comes to my page and they go through this, they go through that, and they're like, oh, there's a brand coming, or oh, there's something happening here. They're going to begin to understand from some of the imagery, like what it is exactly that we're going. And that's where I think brands have the opportunity to build ahead of time, like based on their vibe. Like as soon as you have your vibe nailed, be doing this content, be doing curation to get as many people interested in that vibe as you can, like until you're ready to roll. This is a good example of like a similar style where this is like purely a curation account in running. And they just literally put out like running curation posts. They store stuff from the community. They take photos from other brands. They've kind of created their own like running lifestyle piece. People will feature it. They'll do co-sports. They'll do these little same kind of thing that I was pointing out before. They'll piece stuff together to like for people that are interested around running, and they'll then have this as a platform and be able to do something that they want with. And like by picking a vibe, you can sort of lean into that. And the person who's the best example of like picking a vibe is my guy, Zach. He's like extremely talented at this, but he's able to, kind of find his particular carousels and looks that like tell his story, and that like, collect things together like in a more motivational way that again is just kind of building the basis for when he inevitably drops his brand by him like picking the things that relate to his like moody creative vibe. And he's really good at it.
If this content's been a little bit different than the previous week's vlogs, it's because my time is definitely changing as I get closer to this brand launch. So I am expecting everything in the warehouse by July 25th. I'm trying to go live by that Monday or so, the 28th. And then I go to China like a week or a week and change after that. So I have to be super prepared. All my content has to be ready before I go. And then everything else I'm working on has to be on hiatus while I go visit these factories. But I will document all that as well, assuming everything goes together for the trip. And then right now, it's a lot less of traveling around because we just kicked off the latest Cut 30. We got 100 plus people in there this time. So I'm super focused on making sure we're being attentive there. Still got my brand work. Still got all the sponsored content. So there's a lot happening today. I'm much more often in my house or in the studio, a little less running around. But that's the point of these, right? To show you a bit of what it's like when you have to lock in or not. And excited for y'all to follow the journey. If you're doing any of the stuff I talk about in these videos, you're creating vibes, you're launching brands, you're working on a strategy, share it. Let me know how it's going. Drop it in the comments. Would love to see how people are using it, how it's applied, how it's going. Appreciate y'all watching.